Hey guys, it's Ted Bogert. Welcome back to the Ted Show. Happy Monday or Tuesday, depending on when we debut this show. It's the beginning of a new week, regardless. And I love this episode series on the Ted Show, Realtor 411, with my dear friend, the one and only Walt Key with Epique Realty. We're going to talk about nerd stuff, as he self-proclaimed nerd, about all the data, which is so important. I get lots of feedback from people who don't say anything on the broadcast, but they will absolutely reach out to me or see me in person and tell me, oh my God, that was so good. That helped me understand. So continue to TED it down, dumb it down, and then go lower. But the one and only Walt Key is here. Welcome, my friend. How you doing today?
Thank you. Thank you. I'm happy to be here, as always. Great weather we're having in Florida. Can't wait to see you in person in a couple of weeks in Orlando. That's going to be so much fun.
Yes, I am excited for all of that, and we'll talk about it. But before we do, first timers, they're tuning in. Tell them a little bit about you.
I am a Hawaiian shirt aficionado. Everything you'll need to know about Hawaiian attire, you will learn from me. That's about all you're really going to ever learn from me. All the other stuff is just junk. Coach, published author, real estate guru. I just love helping people. I do it any way I can. I am a self-proclaimed nerd. I dive into the data that nobody else wants to dive into. They find it a little too boring or a little too nuanced. And I do my best to break it down into common sense so people can go talk to their clients about what's really going on, or they can just be prepared to move their business accordingly based on what's going on. So it's a lot of fun.
You do a phenomenal job, and you get what you see with Walt. He's always like this. He's so helpful, and I want to encourage you, which we'll talk about coming up, some of the things that you've got on the schedule before the end of the year, which is great. You want to definitely tune in and register for any kind of class that Walt offers. They're all amazing. All right, let's talk about what is in the news as far as numbers and cool nerdy stuff that we should talk about this week.
Man, so diving into the cool nerdy stuff for just a minute, and then I want to come back to something that you did recently, because I think that's a great conversation for the agents to talk about as well. Some of the nerdy data. The budget deficit is a little bit smaller this year than it was last year. So don't get excited about that. It was about 2% lower than it was fiscal year 2024. It was still about a $1.75 trillion shortage. Not great, but we are starting to see some of that deficit shrink. And one of the big contributing factors, ironically, is the tariffs. The economists are saying that tariff collections were about $200 billion for the year, which doesn't seem like a much when you put it up against a $1.78 trillion deficit, but that's actually 142% spike since last year. So that's a big number, and it's continuing to grow. That's really, really helpful, because most people don't realize how crazy this is. We pay over $1 trillion just on the interest to other countries that own our debt. So we have about $38 trillion in national debt, and we pay literally over $1 trillion a year in interest payments alone. So anything we can do to shrink that surplus helps our economy. It helps the American populace in the long run, because we're at a point now where our deficit is just crazy. Now, on the flip side of that, the tariffs also aren't necessarily great for inflation in the short term. The Fed recently said that the outlook for employment and inflation does not appear to have changed much since our September meeting. This was their minutes that came out recently. So essentially what that means is inflation's still too high. And some economists are saying, well, the inflation is doing okay, but where we were coming down, the tariffs aren't helping with interest coming down, inflation coming down, because businesses that are still importing have to pay more because of the tariffs, and some of that's getting passed down to the consumer. Therefore, inflation isn't coming down as fast as we thought. So it's kind of a double-edged sword, but when you really think about it from the perspective of inflation versus our national debt being owned by our enemies, we kind of need to do something with this national debt. We really need to bring those numbers down. And the tariffs are helping with that, even if they're not directly helping inflation in the short term. Now, we'll see what inflation looks like this week. Even though the government is shut down, we're on day 20 of the shutdown still, and Bureau of Labor Statistics is government funded, so they are essentially closed. a lot of reports that we would typically nerd out about we're not getting right now because of the closure. But BLS did just recently say that they have brought back some of their furloughed workers, and they are specifically going to work on the CPI report, Consumer Price Index report, the main inflation indicator report. That report will be published this Friday morning, despite the government shutdown. So we will see some economic data kind of give us a better gauge on where that inflation is at, the most real-time data that we'll have. That's a good thing. But if you go look at the mortgage interest rates, we're still down a little bit more. We're at 6.22 right now.
6.22.
Interesting.
Remember when we were talking about 6.5, 6.5, 6.5?
We were talking about getting under 6.5. And what's interesting is we're under 6.5. All of the indicators feel like we're moving in the right direction, but we're not actually seeing a lot of the data reported showing that we're moving in the right direction. Right. But that is what it is. But yeah, we are coming down well on interest rates. And we were talking briefly before the show started. If you go look at the 10-year Treasury yield, it recently moved below 4%. Actually, last week bumped below 4%. And they're like, well, I don't even know what that has to do with it. Well, that's not the mortgage. It's not the mortgage, but the 30-year fixed mortgage is very closely aligned to the 10-year Treasury. And as that 10-year Treasury yield comes down, so do mortgages. So interestingly, if you guys ever want to go really nerd out on this, the Fed St. Louis publishes both a weekly chart of the 30-year fixed mortgage interest rate and a weekly chart of the 10-year Treasury yield. So you can put those side by side and analyze the corresponding spread between mortgage rates and the 10-year Treasury. You can track this for decades back. Historically, we've sat somewhere in this kind of call it a channel of about 1.5% to 2%. In times of economic stress, like big, like the crash of 2009, like really big economic problems, we've seen that spread spike up a little higher. It's never been higher than a 3% spread, but we've seen it spike above the 2% occasionally. But historically, over the long haul, it's usually been between about 1.5% and 2%. Well, if you take a Treasury yield of 4% and you put that historical spread on it, 1.5% to 2%, that means 30-year fixed rate mortgages should be somewhere around 5.5% to 6%.
Correct.
We're at 6.22. So you could argue that even if the Fed doesn't cut rates anymore, even if nothing drastically changes in the economic outlook in the short term, we're still probably going to see a drift in the mortgage rates coming down just to equilibrium with that spread as the economy balances out. So that's all good stuff. That's all very, very good things. Even better, the Fed minutes, which again, you'd have to be a nerd to go read them, but I'm the nerd. The Fed minutes from the actual Fed reports or the Fed meetings indicated that almost everybody is in favor of more cuts. The Fed himself has said quantitative tightening. I think we're done with that. So we will very likely see another rate cut at their October meeting, October 29th. I mean, what are we, 9 days away?
9 days.
And there's about a 99% probability of a rate cut on October. And right now, about a 97% probability of a second 25 basis point rate cut in December. So without those rate cuts, the yield spread suggests 5.5% to 6%. With those rate cuts, we're talking about another 0.25% that might drift down. Now, some of that gets factored in ahead of time, just like we talked about a month ago. We saw the mortgage rates come down the week or two leading up to the actual rate cut. That's very, very common because, again, the Treasury investors read the tea leaves, listen to what the Fed is saying, and those yields start to move ahead of the actual cut. We'll probably see that happen again for that December rate cut. But this is all really good news for the mortgage industry. We are going to see rates come down even more moving into 2026. It's going to be a very exciting time to be in the real estate space because people are going to start to feel, okay, things aren't so bad anymore. I think I need to go buy that house I've been putting off. I think I'm going to go sell that house I've been putting off because I can afford to buy the next one with an interest rate. So we're definitely making great progress in that regard. What do you tell
obviously consumers? I hope you're paying attention. But what do you tell realtors? We talked about this previously or maybe offline. Realtors who are like, it's October. I'm not doing anything this last quarter, getting ready to just relax and roll into the holidays? What do you say to them? I mean, I'm giggling as I speak.
Here's what I would say. If you had a stellar 2025, you went out there and you crushed it and you closed deals and you're like, I got a surplus of cash in my bank account. I'm going to Tahiti for a month. If that's you, congratulations. Good job. Do whatever you want. If you are one of the agents, and again, I'm not picking on anybody. I coach thousands of agents all over the place. I love what I do. I talk to a lot of agents. A lot of agents struggled through this year. Despite the fact that I gave them knowledge and tools and resources, a lot of them are just, they didn't put in the work. Let's be honest. If you're one of those agents who are like, I didn't have the best year of my career. I actually closed less than I wanted to close. I didn't make as much money as I wanted to make. You still have a beautiful opportunity to slingshot yourself ahead of the competition for 2026 by starting right now. Build your 2026 business plan. Know exactly what you are going to do every day of the week to grow your business, to get new clients, to follow up with those clients in a valuable way, and start doing it now. Don't wait for 2026 to start putting the plan in motion. Right. Put it in motion on this last quarter when everyone else is trying to kick their feet up. And you will, it's like the tortoise and the hare, right? All of the other agents are the hare and they're about to take that nap on the sideline. Correct. This is your chance to blow past them. So don't get lazy in the last quarter of the year.
Yeah. And don't listen to the old, there's a lot of, I hear it. I've heard it a bunch lately. Even at the conference I was at, I heard some realtors and some affiliates, vendors talking about how they're just kind of winding it down. And I'm like, I don't understand why you're winding anything down right now. This is where you need to be winding it up. Wind it up.
100%. Let's go.
It's just fascinating to me, the mindset. So, go ahead.
I was going to say, let's talk about that for a minute. So last week, great conference. I wish I could have been there. I just had too much going on. Let's talk a little bit about how that went, some of the panels that were there. Give us some insight on how that all came together.
Yeah, so it's fascinating. Ascend was the name of the conference. It was for the realtor side. On the one realtor side, it was for the LPT agents, kind of like their national conference. People came from all over the country. And I was blessed enough to be part of the expo side. And the expo was vendors. Also, believe it or not, they had agents there who were trying to build their teams. So it was a really great mix of and it was a 3-day conference. The expo was there for 2 days. I loved it because they were kind enough to invite me to kind of kick off the expo stage series, on stage series. And we did a TED show live in front of a live audience on a stage with chairs. I felt almost like one of the late night hosts. It was very cool. The setup was beautiful. I had Eileen Winfrey from LPT, Laura Fangman from Watson, and then Brandon Payne from Painpoint Media on. And our whole discussion was, which you and I have talked about, how do you set yourself apart? What makes you unique in this market? And how are you utilizing that to build your brand and to stay in contact with the people that you have and to really grow your business? Because that's the superpower, is what you do. If you're just following the trends and doing all the things everyone else is doing, how does the consumer differentiate you from the other billion agents? That's over exaggerating, but in general. So, shout out to Robert Palmer for inviting me. That was beautiful, his whole team, and my panel was amazing. We got great response on that. I think agents are looking for a way to set themselves apart, but they don't want to be different because they fear that difference is actually a negative because of what they follow on social media. And I know you deal with this in your coaching. Give us some feedback on that, because we talked about how important it was that I identify, let's say, Eileen. She focuses on her strengths rather than what everyone else is doing. She focuses on her database and growing that and keeping in touch with that. And she does it differently than everyone else. And that's a good thing, not a bad thing.
Yeah, for sure. I think if you are always trying to follow someone else's strength, you're always in a position of weakness. They have a head start on you. They've been doing it longer. They're going to have more experience with you or than you. So you're always going to look at other people's success and judge yourself in a position of weakness because, well, I'm not as good as they are. I'm not doing what they're doing. I'm not doing it to the level they're doing. But understand that they started somewhere too, and you're catching them 3/4 of the way through that journey. Right. It's so much better and easier and more effective, quite frankly, to take a little time. You almost want to step back in order to prepare to step forward better. Take a step back and say, who am I? How do I want to communicate with people? Who do I want to work with, right? What kind of customer do I actually genuinely want to help? And build your business around who you are. I call it prospecting for your personality type, right? There's a lot of great ways to build a real estate business. There's a lot of different active prospecting strategies, and they're all highly effective if you do them right. But the choice is, well, I saw Walt do this, so I'm going to suffer through it, even though I hate it, and I'm going to do it because I know it works for Walt.
Yes.
That's the wrong way.
It is so
You're
bad.
going to be miserable. You might make money, but you'll be miserable.
Well, and I feel like you'll be miserable. And sometimes because of analysis paralysis and it not being what you should be doing, you're taking away your focus from the things that work for you or that you know you're good at. I talk a lot about, I don't know if we agree on this or not, but it doesn't matter. I love different opinions. I like people to work in their comfort zone because if you literally hate door knocking, if you hate it with a passion and your broker or your team lead is telling you, you must do it in order to be successful, then you are literally taking away time from the things that you are good at and that you can be focused on. And you're miserable the entire time. I don't understand that way of thinking at all.
So I always challenge an agent when I tell them about a particular strategy or we're talking through things, whatever, and they'll say something like, oh gosh, I hate that. And it's easy to say, oh, well, don't do that if you hate it. But there's an in-between, right? There's, oh, I hate that. And I always ask, what makes you hate it?
Yes. For
2 reasons. One, if their hate for that thing is simply because they don't know how to do it properly, well, let's take a step back, because if I could teach you how to do it right, would you then enjoy doing it? Nobody likes to do something that's not working. Of course, nobody likes to keep failing at something. I get that. But if it's because of a lack of knowledge, we can fix that problem and then you might love it. So I always like to have that conversation. The other piece to that question is you learn a lot when someone says, oh my God, I just can't, I would never want to do that. I hate that. So, well, tell me why you would hate that. And what they say to you actually helps you help them figure out what they should be doing instead.
Right.
Agreed. Because it goes back to that core of this is who I am and this is how I process information. This is how I communicate. This is how my business philosophy. And that is that thing that someone else does just is opposed to the way. It's not that they're wrong. It's just not the way I would do my business.
Correct.
Well, great. Don't do someone else's wrong. Let's find your right. And you'll be more comfortable with it. You'll be more apt to do it. And we all know, and if you don't know, you should know, like every single person fundamentally, I believe, knows this. Consistency is where the magic happens in this business.
Agreed.
But here's the problem. You will not consistently do something you hate.
Correct.
You will not consistently do something you fail at.
Correct.
So you can put up that facade for a little while and say, well, I'm going to grind through this because my broker said I have to. That's not going to last.
No.
As soon as you realize, let me take the time I need to take to align my business with my personality, my goals, my communication style, the consistency actually starts to get much easier because it makes sense to you. You understand what you're doing. You understand why you're doing it. You know how to do it more naturally, and you actually start enjoying the grind.
That's like, for me, I can share personally, what I do for Fluent Mortgage or what I do in the mortgage world is unique, right? I have a different role. I'm absolutely licensed and I'm an LO, but most companies, almost every company wanted me to do something that is just not good for me. It's not a highest and best use of my time. When I'm given the tools and the support and the team, and shout out to them for absolutely adapting to that, I'm able to really excel at what I do best. When I'm not having to worry about certain details that, oh, you should learn this. I don't want to.
Yeah.
I sound like a petulant child, but I'm like, I've already been down that path. It takes time away from relationships and relationship building and retention and branding that I know that I'm excellent at. Yep. And so for me to learn about XYZ and page 14 of the tax returns, and this is what you need to see on here, Ted, these are not things that are the highest and best use of my time. I know them. Don't get me wrong. If you ask me about them, I can. But if you make me focus on those over the things that I know I'm good at and that I can excel at, then we're both losing. And that has been my experience up till this point. And big shout out to Raj and Jerome and the team at Fluent, because they just let me run, God bless them, with the things that I'm good at. And that's what you want, right? You were talking about that. It's so important. Absolutely. You're going to hate it. You're going to hate it, but you have to identify why. Walt's 1,000% right on that. Is it because you don't know it? Or is it just because you did it a million times and you still hate it? And what do you hate about it? And you really have to evaluate it. But I just feel like people get forced into things that really end up costing them business and costing them peace of mind.
Oh yeah, absolutely. I see that a lot in, Facebook groups, real estate related forums. I'll hear something like, my broker requires us to XYZ, right? Door knock a neighborhood, call so many hours a day, host an open house every weekend, whatever it might be. And none of those are bad things, by the way. All of those are effective strategies if done correctly. But for the agent who's like, I absolutely hate knocking on someone's door, interrupting their day unannounced, and then trying to have a friendly conversation. There's so much stress and anxiety that they're projecting. The energy is all wrong.
Yep.
You could say the right things with the wrong energy and still not be effective. And if you're only doing it because someone told you have to check that box, not what you need to be doing. Absolutely.
Correct. 100%. All right. So let's talk about all great stuff, by the way. Let's talk about, you have an upcoming in a couple of weeks.
I actually have, so I have business planning for real estate, which is a little bit of the core of what we're talking about today. Actually, this Friday,
so
this Friday, the 24th of October at noon is business planning for real estate. I am going to walk you through how to cast that strategic vision on your business, how to figure out prospecting based on your personality type, which strategies best align with who you are. We'll talk about the numbers and break that down into actionable plans of, I know exactly what I want to do for the year, how many times a day I have to do something to get there. We'll break that all down for you so you can have an executable business plan for 2026 that works.
Amazing.
That is on Friday, noon Eastern.
Is it too late to register? They can still register.
It's not too late to register. You can go to Eventbrite. If you go to the link tree and click on the one that says all my live events and coaching calls, Eventbrite is currently down because of the Amazon AWS outage. So if you can go follow the profile. I think you can still access the profile. Don't quote me on that, but definitely the link tree works. If the Eventbrite site is down, it's not anything wrong with what we've got going on. Amazon is hosting it and they're down. So as soon as it comes back up, you can register and jump in. It's not too late. I keep the registration open usually literally up until the day of, because I never want anyone to miss it. And then in November, we have a couple other active prospecting courses, building strategic partnerships and creating a perpetual cycle of business with FSBOs and landlords. Those coaching calls will be in November, and they're a great add-on to the business plan, because if you build out your plan and FSBOs is on the list of things you want to try, or even if you don't have any idea what you want to try, I still highly recommend the strategic partnerships, because it's such a natural way to build your business, and it almost anybody that will align with who they are. Honestly, that's a great course to teach you how to go build those partnerships. A lot of fun, and the beautiful thing about the strategies are they cost you no money, right? It's just the time to go have the right conversations in the right way to build the partnerships. Same with FSBOs, right? It doesn't cost you anything to do that. It's just learning how to actually add value in a way that generates a relationship that you can nurture. There's so many great ways to build a business without paying for leads. And I try to teach strategies that are free to execute.
And then as we wrap up, tell them you have your own conference, some kind of conference coming up.
Yeah.
Right?
So Epique Realty has their leadership retreat. So this is all of the brokers, team leaders, area leaders, all of the leadership of the company. Every year they send us down to Margaritaville in Orlando for a couple of days, and we do some teaching and training and just some fun stuff. We usually go to Epcot afterwards and just socialize together. It's just a way for the leaders to come together and get refreshed and be ready to go back out there and lead again. So I'll be in Orlando from the 5th through the 9th for that, and it's going to be super, super fun. I love Margaritaville. Maybe I'm just a Jimmy Buffett fan, and the Hawaiian shirt theme just fits so well. It's almost
right
like they built that. It's like they built it just for me. I love it. That's so good.
There should be a Walt Key suite somewhere.
There should be, actually. So funny. The first year I ever went to that leadership retreat, they put us up in the Margaritaville villas. So it's like a 4-bedroom, 4-bath house, and you all have your own bathroom, your own bedroom. And I picked my room because I was the first one in the building, and the art on the wall, no exaggeration, the art scene matched the Hawaiian shirt I was wearing. And I went, this is my place. This is my room.
This is where you're meant to be.
So good. It worked out so beautifully.
Awesome. All right. So you guys, I want you to reach out to Walt. I want you to attend those classes. Walt, again, what's the best way they can reach you and find out more?
Linktree/Walt Key, or just Google Walt Key Realtor and grab my Facebook page. Either one. The Linktree is on my bio on Facebook, I believe. You're going to want to go to the link that says all my live events and coaching calls. That will take you to our Eventbrite profile. All of the events are on Eventbrite, so they're easy to find and easy to register for. And then reach out to me. The Linktree has all my socials, all my contact info. So whatever mechanism you use to communicate, reach out to me that way.
I love it. Yes, Linktree is amazing. If you're not using it and you do a lot of events or workshops or want to share anything, it's such an easy thing to put together. All right, Walt Key, thank you so much. We'll be back next week. If you guys have questions in between, shoot me an email, text me, call me, message me, or Walt, and we will answer that question live next week. All right,
great week, everybody.
We'll talk to you soon. Bye, everybody.